Hey everyone, this is Lauren. Welcome to Skeptic She, or welcome back. Today I want to finally share with you my indirect experience with a very pervasive and powerful Christian organization, especially in the United States, called Focus on the Family. This will be another video where I'm reading off of a blog post. I will link it down below, but without any further ado, let's get into it. I sliced my thumb open for the second time in 6 months last night. I need to stop doing that. I need to be nicer to this thumb, especially because I need it to, scroll, but surprisingly enough it works with a band-aid on, so anyway. So as you may be able to tell by the title of this video and the blog post, I am not a fan of Focus on the Family. I used to be, and you're gonna find out why, assuming you haven't read the post yet. But as always, I'm gonna elaborate in the video more than I would just writing in this post. Is it really dark in here? I don't know. The sun was just in my face like 5 minutes ago. We're gonna start this over. In the summer of 2011, one of my best friends, whom we'll call Bonnie, embarked on her first big solo trip to Colorado Springs, which, as many of you know, is the headquarters of the organization we're talking about today. She had landed an internship with a Christian organization previously unknown to me called Focus on the Family. By the way, I did link to their Wikipedia page and a whole bunch of other different things on the actual blog post, so be sure if you want to see different references that you go to the actual blog post to find those. So she had landed an internship with Focus on the Family in Colorado Springs, and at the time, since I was super Christian, it seemed like an enviable adventure. Spending the summer with a nice host family in a beautiful home by the mountains, writing blogs for a reputable organization, all to spread the gospel of Christ, in my pious mind, this sounded perfect. And then I put a picture. That's your typical Focus on the Family. So while Bonnie was on the path of righteousness doing this internship with Focus on the Family, I, still very much Christian, mind you, was spending that summer playing music with and making out with a non-Christian. Let's call him Wayne, because I love the show Letterkenny on Hulu. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. But anyway, we're calling him Wayne for no other reason that I like Letterkenny. Coincidentally, Wayne was familiar with Focus on the Family, but not in a good way. I had cheerfully shared the news with him about my best friend's internship, and said I was interested in going that route sometime too. I actually do remember being pretty jealous of the fact that she got to go across the country and do this internship, and Focus on the Family sounded super dope at the time. So I was like, I want to do not just something similar to this, I want to do the exact same thing. And I was actually asking her how she got the internship, and I tried to write some practice blogs to maybe submit to them at some point. Thankfully that never happened, but anyway, continuing. So after I told Wayne about my best friend's internship and that I wanted to be involved with it, he had a very knee-jerk response, and he said something like, "What? No! Why?" Apparently his ex-girlfriend had been involved with Focus, which is how he knew about it, and the way he made it sound, it was as though she beat him bloody with a Bible. The organization was, in his mind, that intense. He didn't go into specifics as to why, but seeing him squirm at the mere mention of their name planted a microscopic seed of doubt in my head. Keyword microscopic. I shrugged off Wayne's comments and used them as another opportunity to proselytize to him. Sound familiar? I assumed he was misunderstanding Christianity in general, not hating Focus on the Family itself.
I just want you to be able to go to heaven with me,
I would plead. Anyway, that summer never led to more than a couple of angsty songs written about each other, and we eventually renewed our friendship a couple years after I left the church. But that's a whole other story. So, was Wayne's reaction valid? Is Focus on the Family really that toxic? They're just another bunch of misinformed white evangelicals, right? Well, once I was a couple years into my deconversion, I was finally willing to put them under the kind of scrutiny they deserved. Come to find out, Focus on the Family is one of the most pervasive and perverted Christian organizations in the world. A stain on society, to say the least. I'm paranoid because my neighbor keeps walking back and forth. Whatever, we're gonna keep going, people gotta deal with it. So let's take a look at just how problematic and dangerous Focus on the Family is, starting with their own website. And I did insert a quote directly from their website. "This ministry is based upon 6 guiding philosophies drawn from the wisdom of the Bible and the Judeo-Christian ethic, rather than from the humanistic notions of today's theorists. In short, Focus on the Family is a reflection of what we believe to be the recommendations of the Creator himself who ordained the family and gave it his blessing. Okay, so there was a lot more in that values section, but this was my takeaway from just that brief introductory section. First of all, they come out swinging with the presumption that their scriptural interpretations are correct and morally solid, and immediately after that they dismiss other Christians' humanistic notions. But my question is, wouldn't focus on the family's quote-unquote Judeo-Christian ethic also be a humanistic notion? After all, Christians are not Christ. Not that I think such a being ever existed, but I digress. And there are as many different interpretations of the Bible as there are readers of it. I did elaborate on this in a previous post, so I'm not going to do that again here, but this just goes to show the level of perceived superiority we're dealing with here from Focus on the Family. Another thought I have on this value section is that since Focus on the Family believes they are preaching the recommendations of the Creator himself, which is another highly haughty presumption, Focus on the Family is left with little to no room to grow with society nor be open to nuance. Powerful organizations like Focus on the Family can be super dangerous when they are not willing to accept anything other than their version of the capital T truth. With that, if Christ, quote, ordained the family, end quote, and his word is set in stone, it's easy for Focus and other biblical literalists to actively suppress civil rights for those who don't fit within that primitive model of a family. Focus on the Family continues to fall backward into the dusty recesses of history, and consequently they feel more and more othered by the very people they discriminate against. This self-created ostracism leads Focus on the Family and its supporters to cling much more tightly to their holy guns. Nothing bolsters bad beliefs quite like fear of their obsolescence. These guiding philosophies that Focus on the Family outlines on their website are really no surprise, but I'm gonna go ahead and list them out anyway. So Focus on the Family believes that heterosexual marriages and having heterosexual children make up the foundation of society. They believe preborn children should be I almost said preborn children should be prosecuted at all costs. That is not what I meant to say. Focus on the Family believes that preborn children should be protected, that's it, at all costs to anyone else. And they also believe that people need to be rescued from sexual brokenness. So aside from that section alone, throughout their website they also push their $5,000 to $10,000 Hope Restored counseling retreats to try and prevent even the worst marriages from failing. Because, you know,
divorce is bad, okay?
So moving outside of Focus on the Family's website, there's a story that corroborates a lot of the toxic family views that I just outlined. There's an incredibly damning and moving story from a Focus executive's own daughter about coming out as gay. Here are a few segments from her story that she has online, and I did link to that in the blog post as well. Her name, just for the record, is Amber Cantorna, and the title of this is 7 Years Later, Gay Daughter of Focus on the Family Executive opens up about the years since losing everything. So even that title alone is pretty damning, but here are the segments that I pulled from this. She says, "I lived constantly with the anxiety that coming out as gay to my family, the family that was the epitome of perfection to the conservative Christian world, could potentially cost me everything, but I was not prepared for the fact that it actually would. With a father who's been employed as a Focus on the Family executive for over 30 years and a mother who stayed home to school and raise us, I knew this news would not be easy. I had never felt more vulnerable in my life than I did in those moments awaiting their response." And this was shortly after she had just come out to them, of course. "Then, with anger in my dad's eyes, he simply said, 'I have nothing to say to you right now,' and walked out the door. The next conversation I had with my family was one where they looked me in the eye and told me they felt like I had died, and that given the choice, they would choose God over me." How messed up is that? The unconditional love my parents professed growing up suddenly had very clear conditions attached. Here's the nice thing, she did end up getting married, which I will mention. So this is a picture of Amber and her wife that I got from that story that she posted. If you ask me, it's really sweet to see that, especially after such a horrible story. So yeah, she was ultimately able to accept her own queerness and maintain her Christianity. She even got married, yay. and went on to write books and give talks encouraging other LGBTQ plus Christians. I really am happy that Amber's humanistic tendencies led her to experience true unconditional love. Now, of course, I don't think that she ever needed Jesus or the Christian faith to find self-acceptance and to find that unconditional love, but this is just a stark reminder of how toxic focus on the family is, and the fact that they really are on the extreme end of Christianity. Beyond shunning their own family members, Focus on the Family takes their extremism into the public sphere, raking in millions of dollars, which I did not know until I researched this just this past week. I didn't know that they were that wealthy. That's insane. They rake in millions of dollars and donate much of that to anti-LGBTQ plus leaders and movements. They actively support gay conversion therapy and employment discrimination, although they probably wouldn't call it that. And they claim that marriage equality will lead to the downfall of civilization. This is part of a list of dozens of examples that the Human Rights Campaign has compiled. I would highly recommend that you read this list. Again, it is linked in the blog post. And since we have some time, I'll go ahead and read some here. This list, I think, was put together around 2012, 2013, just based on the dates I'm seeing. The Human Rights Campaign says that Focus on the Family raised over $515 million in 5 years. Oh, and apparently, and this is something I didn't know, they have a related organization called Citizen Link, and they supposedly support radical anti-LGBTQ candidates who work against basic civil rights and legal protections. That's just number one. There's a huge list of all of the money that they've raised to support these kinds of really awful organizations. And then it outlines their promotion of the very discredited and harmful practice of conversion therapy. This is the absolute worst. This makes me sick. Focus on the Family's justification for conversion therapy is, just as there are many paths that may lead a person to experience same-sex attractions, there are likewise multiple ways out. All jokes aside, this is absolutely disgusting. I can't believe that I ever supported them. I think, honestly, with the level of indoctrinated that I was back in 2011 still, I probably wouldn't have cared. I probably would have said, yes, we need to get people out of their sinful ways and whatever, although I was much more of a hate the sin, not the sinner kind of person, which is a whole big problem in and of itself. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff in here. They talk about how homosexuality is preventable and treatable as if it's some kind of disease or a problem at all. I would highly recommend you read through that entire list if you have the time, even if you just read a few segments of it. I think it's important to keep speaking out against organizations like this, even though they are massive. I even had a hard time finding articles and videos against Focus on the Family because they are that pervasive and powerful. They're really good at taking over the narrative about them, and I'm trying to put my little voice out there to say, no, you can't do that. Some of us understand what you're actually doing, and it is not healthy and not good, and I damn bet there are plenty of people in your organization who want to disagree with you but feel that they can't because they're being so pressured, and you do not give a crap. So there's plenty more to say against Focus on the Family, but I am confident at this point that most readers and viewers of this will see just how toxic Focus on the Family is. In my humble opinion, Focus on the Family is like the Fox News of modern religion. They are a symptom of a festering societal disease brought about by fear, miseducation, and mismanagement of power. They conquer by dividing us. Focus on the Family's ministry really needs to be stopped, and I hope that people like my friend Bonnie will realize that as history continues to pass them by. That's it. That's the tweet. I'm sure there's so much more that I could say about Focus on the Family, but I'm not going to do so today. I just wanted to share at least the preliminary indirect experience I had with my best friend joining them and how that led to this rabbit hole when I became an atheist. With that said, thank you all so much for watching. Thank you to my new subscribers. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, share it with your friends, subscribe if you have not already, keep asking questions, and I will see you next time. I'm happer, I can't talk today.